So these two ladies walk into a mortician's office. The first woman says to the mortician, "I've got my husband here in his very best blue suit, but what I'd really appreciate is if you could have him in a black suit for the funeral. Here's a blank check. Use whatever you need. I just want him in a black suit." The mortician agrees and thanks the woman, and the first woman leaves. Now the second woman comes in and says, "I know I've brought my husband wearing a black suit, but I've always really loved him in blue. Is there any way you can have him in a blue suit for his funeral?" The mortician assures her that it's not a problem, and the second woman thanks her and leaves. A few days later, the mortician shows up at the first man's funeral, and his widow walks up and says, "Thank you so much for doing this. My husband looks wonderful in the black suit you found him." The mortician replies, "Of course, I was happy to do it, and here's your check back. No, I really appreciate it, and I want to pay you. Just take whatever you need." "Oh, no, really. It didn't cost me anything. You see, right after you came in, a woman showed up with her husband in a black suit, and she wanted him wearing blue. So in the end, all I had to do was switch the heads." One winter morning during breakfast, a husband and wife in northern Minnesota were listening to the radio. They heard the announcer say, "We are going to have 8 to 10 inches of snow today. You must park your car on the even-numbered side of the street so the snow plows can get through." So the good wife went out and moved her car. A week later, while they are eating breakfast again, the radio announcer says, "We are expecting 10 to 12 inches of snow today. You must park your car on the odd-numbered side of the street so the snowplows can get through." The good wife went out and moved her car again. The next week, they were again having breakfast when the radio announcer said, "We are expecting 12 to 14 inches of snow today. You must park." Then the electric power went out. The good wife was very upset, and with a worried look on her face, she said, "Honey, I don't know what to do. Which side of the street do I need to park on so the snowplows can get through?" With the love and understanding in his voice that all men who are married to blondes exhibit, the husband replied, "Why don't you just leave it in the garage this time?" So old Jed is screwing his goat when a neighbor witnesses this unspeakable act of bestiality. The neighbor calls the cops, and Jed is arrested. Jed goes to a lawyer, explains the case, and the lawyer says, "I can defend you for $5,000. "What's the point?" says Jed. "My neighbor witnessed the whole thing. Why should I waste $5,000? They're going to find me guilty for sure." "Don't you worry none," says the lawyer. "The key to any trial is the jury, and believe me, I know how to pick a jury." So Jed reluctantly agrees. The day of the trial, the neighbor gets up on the witness stand. The prosecutor says, "Tell the jury what you saw." So the neighbor says, "I was walking along my property when I saw old Jed over there approach one of his goats, drop his drawers, and mount that poor animal from behind. After being about 2 minutes old, Jed appeared to be finished." "What happened then?" asks the prosecutor. "Well," says the neighbor, "then that goat turned around and licked Jed's pecker." A gasp went up in the courtroom, and old Jed had all but given up hope when a juror in overalls leaned over toward the fellow next to him and whispered, "You know, a good goat will do that." So Bob shot a duck and it fell into Tom's property. Bob quickly hopped over the fence and went into Tom's backyard to get his meal. But Tom walked outside and found Bob trespassing. "Hey, Bob, that duck is on my property and it is mine." "No way, Tom. I shot this duck fair and square. I shot it, so I eat it." "How about this?" said Tom. "We both kick each other in the balls, back and forth, and the first person to fall on the floor loses and has to give up the duck." "That sounds reasonable. I have a high pain tolerance. Hit me with your best shot," yelled Bob. Boom! Tom kicks Bob as hard as he can in the balls. Bob yells in pain, but he is still standing. "All right, so you kicked me in the balls. Now it's my turn," exclaimed Bob. "Nah, man, it's cool. You can keep the duck." A woman goes on a business trip overseas, leaving her husband behind to look after the house and kids. After a few days, she calls up to see how everything is. "Everything's fine," he says. "The kids are finally sleeping okay without you here. And my boss has given me an extra week off until you're back. Oh, I forgot to say the cat's dead. She was hit by a car." "What?" says the wife. "Are you serious? Why couldn't you have broken it to me more gently?" "How do you mean?"
You know how much I loved her. You could have lied to me and just built it up gradually, like you could have said she was stuck on the roof and then tomorrow told me that the fire brigade was coming over to rescue her, and the day after that she'd fallen and broken her leg, and then on Friday you could tell me that she passed peacefully in her sleep. Don't just blurt out, "The cat's dead." The man apologizes, and his wife hangs up, angry at him. After a few days, she calls back to apologize. "I'm sorry I snapped," she says. "These meetings have just been really stressful. How are you all doing?" "We're all good here," says the man. "Johnny got a certificate for swimming 100 meters, and Molly says she wants a pony for Christmas. Oh, I nearly forgot. Your mom is stuck on the roof."
Two elderly men met in a town in Florida and began to talk to each other. It turned out both of them were from Oregon and had owned small factories and had now retired and moved to Florida. "I had a factory that produced high-end furniture," said the first man. "Was successful for many years, made lots of money, but now the market is changing. Cheap imported furniture is taking over. My company ran at a loss for a couple of years and I didn't know what to do. And then one night there was a fire and the whole damn factory burned down. I could have built a new factory with the insurance money, but I figured I was old enough that it was time to retire. So I just took the insurance money and here I am." "Wow," said the second man. "That's so similar to my story. I had a factory that built speedboats. Lots of success for many years, made lots of money, but speedboat technology keeps changing faster and faster, and I wasn't keeping up, and I started to lose money. Then one day there was an earthquake and the factory building collapsed. Luckily, I was insured just like you, and I decided to retire, take the money, and run. And now here I am." The first man gazed wide-eyed at the second man for several seconds. Then in a low voice he asked, "How do you arrange an earthquake?" A man enjoying bachelorhood while his wife was away visiting her parents lived like a typical bachelor, living on whatever was in the pantry. Cauliflower in the fridge. Fry them with the eggs found there, and that's lunch and dinner. Don't want to cook? Open up the cans of soup in the pantry. Dropped a can of soup, luckily unopened, on his foot. Need a cold compress? Use the packet of frozen peas in the freezer. Oh dear, the peas have thawed. Use them in the soups. You get the idea. Thawed. Come the day my wife is due to return. Hubby takes stock and realizes he has a lot of stuff to replace and some cleaning to do. While tidying up, he notices some peas had rolled under the fridge. Down on his knees to gather them, he notices the rubber seal around the fridge door is loose and hanging down. All cleaned up, cans in the garbage, he is ready to go shopping. "Walkies, Rover," he calls the dog. Excited, the dog bounds up and tries to hug him doggy fashion. "Phew, Rover, your breath stinks. Need to get you some dental sticks." Off they go, a man and his dog to the shops, the dog woofing happily, the man singing his shopping list: soup, a collie, fridge elastic, eggs, peas, halitosis. George goes inside a market to buy some food. He got to the vegetable section and said to the lady who was selling the veg, "George, hello, miss." Lady, "Hello, sir, how can I help you?" George, "Can I please have 5 kilograms of potatoes, but can you wrap them individually in a piece of paper?" Lady, "Sure." So, she wrapped each potato in a piece of paper, put them in a bag, and gave them to George. George, "Can I please have 7 kilograms of onions, but again, can you wrap them individually in paper?" Lady, yeah, why not?" So, she took each onion, wrapped it in paper, put the onions in the bag, and gave them to George. George, "Can I please have 4 kilograms of carrots?" Lady, "And I assume that you want each carrot wrapped in paper, right?" George, "If it is still possible, yes, please." So she took each carrot, wrapped it in paper, put the carrots in the bag, and gave them to George. Lady, "Is there anything else, sir?" George, "Yes, what are those black things on your right?" Lady, "Oh, sir, those are poppy seeds, but they are not for sale." The flight wasn't carrying enough meals for all passengers. Airborne less than 30 minutes on an outbound evening flight, the stew lead flight attendant for the cabin crew nervously made the following painful announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so very sorry, but it appears that there has been a terrible last-minute error by our airport catering service. I don't know how this has happened, but we have 103 passengers on board and, unfortunately, only 40 dinner meals. I truly apologize for this mistake and inconvenience." When the passenger muttering had died down, she continued, "Anyone who is kind enough to give up their meal so that someone else can eat will receive free, unlimited drinks for the duration of our flight." Her next announcement came 90 minutes later. "If anyone would like to change their minds, we still have 40 dinners available." There were 3 guys in an airplane. One guy dropped a rock, another dropped a brick, and the last dropped a grenade. When they got back on the ground, they were walking down the street and they saw a woman crying. Being the gentlemen they are, they went up to ask her why she was crying. She said, "A rock fell from the sky, landed on my cat, and now my cat is dead." The men said they were very sorry to hear that and walked away. The next house they came across a little further down the road, there was another woman crying. Being the gentlemen they are, they walk up to her and ask her why she was crying. She said, "A brick fell from the sky, landed on my dog, and now my dog is dead." The men said they were very sorry to hear that and walked away. The next house they came across a little further down the road had a man laughing his head off. Wondering what was so funny, they went up to ask him. After they asked him, he replied, "I bent over to get the newspaper this morning. I farted and my whole house blew up." "These 2 dudes are lost in a stolen airplane. One said he was a pilot, but who knows? Anyway, they need to land this hot airplane somewhere before they get low on gas. They're freaking out when all of a sudden they see a runway. The guy on the controls says, 'There's the runway, bro.' Other guy is like, 'Oh man, I don't know. That runway looks really short, dude.' The guy flying is like, 'No, bro, that is definitely a runway. Let's do this.' The other guy still isn't sure. 'It's too short, bro,' he cries. Tears. 'We're gonna crash.' 'Bro, we got this. I'm gonna land this plane on this runway just like this, bro, Seth. We'll be fine.' The plane hits the runway and the dude jams the brakes, and miraculously they stop just before they run into the trees. 'Wow,' says the pilot. 'That is the shortest runway I have ever seen.' Then he looks side to side. 'But it sure is wide.'" Whitey was in the fertilized egg business. He had hundreds of young hens called pullets and about 10 roosters whose sole job was, well, you know. Whitey was a stickler for efficiency. He kept meticulous records, and any rooster that didn't perform ended up in the soup pot. But tracking their, productivity took up too much of his time. So Whitey got clever. He attached tiny bells to each rooster, each with a different tone, so he could monitor their performance just by listening from his porch. Genius. His favorite rooster was Old Brewster, a fine specimen of a bird. But one morning, Whitey noticed something odd. Brewster's bell wasn't ringing at all. Curious, Whitey went to check. The other roosters were running after the pullets, bells jingling wildly as the hens darted away. But Brewster? He was different. To Whitey's amazement, Brewster had figured it out. He was holding his bell in his beak, sneaking up on the pullets in complete silence, and getting the job done without a single jingle. Whitey was so proud he entered Brewster in the county fair, and the wily old rooster became an overnight sensation. The judges were so impressed they awarded him not just the Nobel Peace Prize, but also the Pulitzer Prize. A man sits at a bar after work, looking stressed. The bartender asks, "Rough day?" The man sighs. "I'm not sleeping well. I keep having nightmares about a monster under my bed, but I'm too embarrassed to see a shrink." A nearby patron overhears and chimes in. "I'm actually a psychiatrist. I can help. These are just dreams. There is nothing to fear. A few sessions, and you'll be sleeping like a baby. Here's my card. Give me a call." A few weeks later, the psychiatrist sees the man back at the bar, looking relaxed. "Hey, I never heard from you. How are the nightmares?" "Oh, things are great," the man says. "The bartender helped me." The psychiatrist frowns. "The bartender? You needed professional therapy. What could he have possibly done that I couldn't?" The man shrugs. "He told me to saw the legs off my bed." A woman was certain that her husband was cheating on her with their live-in maid, so she decided to set a trap. One day she sent the maid to her home for the weekend and didn't tell her husband about it. That night, when she went to bed with her husband, he got up in the middle of the night with the usual excuse that he had to go to the washroom to relieve himself. The wife immediately went to the maid's bedroom, climbed onto the maid's bed, and switched off the light. Very silently, he came in, climbed on top of her, and made passionate love to her. When he finished making love to her, she said to him, "I bet you didn't expect me to be here on the maid's bed, did you?" "No, ma'am," replied the gardener. A married lady goes to her doctor for her annual checkup, and everything is good. In her conversation at the end of all the tests and examinations with the doctor, she expressed a concern about her husband. "As you know, I raised champion golden retrievers, and one evening I was making their food. I had a big pot on the stove simmering, and my husband came home and got a big ladle full and ate it. I told him it was for the dogs, but he said it was delicious and insisted that is what he wanted for dinner that night. Well, I make the dogs' food every week, and every time I make a new batch, my husband eats it for dinner. I'm concerned about him eating the dog's food." The doctor proceeded to ask her what was in the dog's food and how it was prepared. After she describes in detail the ingredients and the preparation, the doctor finally says, "I don't think there is anything that can hurt him. I wouldn't encourage him to eat it, but it sounds safe enough to eat." A year goes by, and the woman goes back to the doctor for her annual checkup. As was standard procedure, the doctor sits down with the woman and discusses the test results. As he is going through her file, he sees a note from the previous year regarding her husband's propensity to eat the dog food made by her. He asks her, "So is your husband still eating the dog food you prepare?" "Oh, no, doctor, my husband died." "Oh, my lord, I'm so sorry. It wasn't because of the dog food, was it?" "Well, not directly. No, not directly. What happened?" "Well," the lady said in a very sad and grief-stricken voice, "he got hit by a car when he was sitting in the middle of the road licking his balls." A lawyer is at an airport and starts feeling really bored while waiting for his flight. He notices that he's sitting next to a blonde woman. She's reading a book. He assumes that the woman is an idiot because she's a blonde. "Hey, I want to play a game. I'll ask you a question, and then you ask me a question, and we'll see who answers the most right." "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm trying to read this book. How about this? If we don't know the answer, we'll give each other $5? The blonde woman shakes her head. "How about you give me $5 if you don't know the answer, and I give you $500 if I don't know the answer?" The blonde woman shrugs. "All right. What country's neighbor Tajikistan?" The woman gives him $5 and he laughs. "What has 12 legs at birth but loses one every time it rains?" The lawyer looks at her with a confused expression. He repeats the question to himself multiple times and starts to look it up on the internet. The woman goes back to reading while the lawyer reads every single website he could find. He spent hours searching and started calling friends and family members to see if they knew. Eventually, his flight arrived. The lawyer sighed in defeat and handed the woman $500. She smiled and took his money. "So what's the answer?" She gave him $5. A man walks out to the street and catches a taxi just going by. He gets into the taxi and the cabbie says, "Perfect timing, you're just like Frank." Passenger, "Who?" Cabbie, "Frank Feldman. He's a guy who did everything right all the time." Passenger, "There are always a few clouds over everybody." Cabbie, "Not Frank Feldman. He was a terrific athlete. He could have won the Grand Slam at tennis. He could golf with the pros. He sang like an opera baritone and danced like a Broadway star, and you should have heard him play the piano. He was an amazing guy." Passenger, "Sounds like he was really something special." Cabbie, "There's more. He had a memory like a computer. He remembered everybody's birthday. He knew all about wine, which foods to order and which fork to eat them with. He could fix anything, not like me. I'd change a fuse and the whole street blacks out. But Frank Feldman could do everything right every single time." Passenger, "Wow, what a guy." Cabbie, "He always knew the quickest way to go in traffic and avoid traffic jams. Not like me, I always seem to get stuck in them. But Frank, he never made a mistake, and he really knew how to treat a woman and make her feel good. He would never answer her back even if she was in the wrong, and his clothing was always immaculate, with his shoes highly polished too. He was the perfect man. He never made a mistake. No one could ever measure up to Frank Feldman." Passenger, "How did you meet him?" Cabbie, "I never actually met Frank. He died and I married his wife." A man boards a plane and is surprised to find a parrot strapped into the seat next to him. Once they're in the air, the stewardess comes around, and the man politely asks for a coffee. The parrot, on the other hand, squawks, "And get me a bloody whiskey, you moron." The startled stewardess hesitates, but soon returns with a whiskey for the parrot, forgetting the coffee. The man gently reminds her, but before she can respond, the parrot drains its glass and screeches, "And bring me another whiskey while you're at it, idiot." Flustered, the stewardess rushes off and returns with another whiskey, but still no coffee. Frustrated, the man decides to take a page from the parrot's book. "I've asked you twice for a coffee, moron. Now get it before I give you a slap." Within seconds, two burly air marshals storm in, grab both the man and the parrot, drag them to the emergency exit, and throw them out of the plane. As they plummet through the sky, the parrot turns to the man and says, "You know, for someone who can't fly, you got a big mouth." There was once a cruel king who executed people on a whim. One day, a minister gave him bad advice, and the king, furious, ordered him to be thrown to his vicious, ravenous guard dogs. The minister fell to his knees. "Your Majesty, I have served you faithfully for 10 years, and this is my reward?" The king was unmoved. "At least grant me 10 days before my execution," the minister pleaded. Curious but still bloodthirsty, the king agreed. For the next 10 days, the minister visited the royal kennels, feeding the dogs, grooming them, caring for them, and earning their trust. When the time came, the king ordered him thrown to the beasts. But instead of attacking, the dogs wagged their tails, licked his feet, and played with him like an old friend. The king was stunned. "What happened to my vicious dogs?" The minister calmly replied, "I served these dogs for only 10 days, and they did not forget my kindness. I served you for 10 years, and you forgot at my first mistake." The king fell silent, deep in thought. The next day he replaced the dogs with crocodiles. Young girl comes home from being over at the neighbor's and asks her mom what it is called when two people are sleeping on top of each other in the bedroom. Mom just comes right out and tells her it's called intercourse, and that is how babies are made. The girl runs back to the neighbors. A little while later, the girl comes home and says, "Mom, you were wrong. They're called bunk beds, and Mrs. Tidder wants to see you." Two prawns, Justin and Christian, were swimming in the sea, constantly dodging hungry sharks. One day, Justin had enough. "I'm sick of being a prawn. I wish I were a shark. Then I wouldn't have to live in fear." Suddenly, in a flash of light, a mysterious cod appeared. "Your wish is granted," the cod declared. And just like that, Justin transformed into a fearsome shark. Christian, terrified, bolted away, leaving Justin alone. At first, Justin relished his power, but soon he realized none of his old friends would come near him. They all swam away, fearing he'd eat them. His new life was powerful, but lonely. After weeks of isolation, Justin regretted his wish. One day, he spotted the mysterious cod again and pleaded, "Please change me back. I miss my old life." The cod granted his request, and Justin was a prawn once more. Overjoyed, he rushed to Christian's home and knocked on the coral gate. "Christian, it's me, Justin. I've changed. Come out and see me." From inside, Christian shouted back, "No way! You're a shark, and I'm not falling for that trick." Justin called out, "No, really, I'm not a shark anymore. That was the old me. I've changed. I've found cod. I'm a prawn again, Christian." A guy walks into a bar with his dog and says, "I'll have a scotch and water, and my dog will have a whiskey sour." The bartender frowns. "Sorry, we don't allow animals in here." The dog sighs. "Hey, I'm tired of being discriminated against. Just give me a drink." The bartender scoffs. "Oh no, not another ventriloquist with the old talking dog trick. Both of you, get out." No, this isn't a trick, I swear." The guy insists. "Tell you what, I'll step outside, take a walk around the block, and you can talk to Gizmo yourself." The man leaves, and the bartender watches as he turns the corner. The dog clears his throat. "So, about that whiskey sour?" The bartender's jaw drops. "Holy hell! All right, it's on the house. But hey, do me a favor. My wife works next door at the cafe. Go in there, order a coffee, and it'll make her day. Here's $10. Keep the change." "Deal," says the dog, taking the money and heading out. 10 minutes pass. No dog. The owner returns and asks, "Where's Gizmo?" Both of them rush outside to check. As they approach the cafe, they spot Gizmo in the alley going at it hot and heavy with a French poodle. The owner shouts, "Gizmo, what the hell are you doing? You've never done this before." The dog shrugs. "Well, I've never had any money before." A guy walks into a bar with his dog and says, "I'll have a scotch and water and my dog will have a whiskey sour." The bartender frowns. "Sorry, we don't allow animals in here." The dog sighs. "Hey, I'm tired of being discriminated against. Just give me a drink." The bartender scoffs. "Oh no, not another ventriloquist with the old talking dog trick. Both of you, get out." No, this isn't a trick, I swear." The guy insists. "Tell you what, I'll step outside, take a walk around the block, and you can talk to Gizmo yourself." The man leaves, and the bartender watches as he turns the corner. The dog clears his throat. "So, about that whiskey sour?" The bartender's jaw drops. "Holy hell! All right, it's on the house. But hey, do me a favor. My wife works next door at the cafe. Go in there, order a coffee, and it'll make her day. Here's $10. Keep the change." "Deal," says the dog, taking the money and heading out. 10 minutes pass. No dog. The owner returns and asks, "Where's Gizmo?" Both of them rush outside to check. As they approach the cafe, they spot Gizmo in the alley going at it hot and heavy with a French poodle. The owner shouts, "Gizmo, what the hell are you doing? You've never done this before." The dog shrugs. "Well, I've never had any money before." An employee walks into her manager's office and says, "I'd like to take a day off." The manager leans back in his chair and replies, "A day off, huh? Let's just see how many days off you already have." He pulls out a notepad and starts his dramatic breakdown. There are 365 days in a year. You get 2 days off every weekend. That's 104 days gone. That leaves us with 261 working days. Now you sleep 8 hours a day. That's a third of the year gone. That's another 122 days. We're down to 139. Then there's lunch. An hour each day? That adds up to 46 days a year. Coffee breaks. Let's say 30 minutes a day. That's about 23 more days. We're down to 70 days of actual work. Then you've got sick leave. It is 2 days a year. Now we're at 68. Public holidays? That's 5 more gone. We're at 63. And let's not forget your generous 14 days of annual leave. That puts us at 49 days. Oh, wait, company training sessions, meetings that go nowhere, fire drills, team building days, and the time it takes to figure out the office printer. That's at least 48 days. So now, my friend, we're down to 1 day of real, solid, productive work all year. And now you want that 1 day off? A man wakes up in a mysterious room. There's nothing in it but a ladder leading upward and a $10 bill on the floor. Suddenly, a disembodied voice echoes, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." The man eyes the $10 and scoffs. "That's it? I'm climbing." He climbs the ladder. On the next floor, he finds $1,000 and a moderately attractive woman smiling at him. Again, the voice calls out, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." Tempting. But he climbs again. Now he finds $50,000, a very attractive woman, the deed to a cozy house, and a job that pays twice his current salary. He pauses. Then the voice repeats, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." He swallows hard and climbs again. This time it's overwhelming. $1 million in cash, bank records showing a net worth of $50 million, keys to his dream car, a mansion, and 2 breathtakingly beautiful women beckoning him. As he takes a step forward, the voice rings out once more. "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." He hesitates. Everything he's ever wanted is right here, but ambition whispers louder. Slowly, he turns and climbs once more. This ladder feels different. Longer, darker, the air gets heavier, a foul stench grows with each step. Finally, he reaches the next floor and pulls himself into the gloom. There's no money. No women, no mansion, just a dim room and a figure hunched in the corner. The figure strikes a match and lights a cigarette. As the smoke curls up, the man recoils. The figure is enormous, disheveled, at least 400 pounds, and smells like he's never even heard of soap. The man stares in shock as the figure grins and steps closer. Welcome, he says with a wheeze. I'm Sess.